Welcome back to the Gospel Truth Legal Show. It's brought to you by the Law Office of Ernest B. Fenton. I am attorney Ernest B. Fenton, your stop foreclosure attorney. At the Law Office of Ernest B. Fenton, I can be contacted at 708-991-7268 for your free 30-minute consultation. Again, that number is 708-991-7268. This show is sponsored by Chicago Title Land Trust Company. It's a strong and stable corporate trustee with over 100 years of experience serving the needs of Illinois real property owners. They're my partner in the promotion to have 201 land trusts created in 2011. So Chicago Title Land Trust Company is my partner in that endeavor. 201 land trusts in 2011. You've heard me say this before. If you own a property, whether you have a mortgage or not, you can place that property in a land trust, and I'm demanding that you place that property in a land trust to protect yourself and your family. Now, before we went to the break, I said we come back and talk about unemployment and whether or not you qualify for a loan modification if you're on unemployment. The short answer is no. The short answer is that you do not qualify for a loan modification if you are on unemployment. However, do not stick your head in the sand. Don't panic. Do not panic. There is some relief available if you are on unemployment. If you're on unemployment, then you qualify. Typically 95% of the lenders that I deal with, they will offer you unemployment forbearance. Now, what's the difference between forbearance and a loan modification? Forbearance is temporary. So a forbearance plan for someone who's on unemployment would look like the lender will give you 3 months, as an example, of reduced payments. Maybe they cut your payments in half. I'm just creating this number. I'm just coming up with a number. Maybe they cut your payments in half. Your mortgage payment typically is $1,500 a month. Your lender will say, fine, for 3 months, pay $750. Now, what happens after 3 months elapses and you're still on unemployment? Well, the forbearance agreement would take you back to your regular monthly mortgage payments. But if you're not prepared to pay that monthly payment again at the normal rate, this is what you must do. Prior to your unemployment forbearance plan elapsing, contact your lender at least a couple of weeks prior and ask for an extension. And typically they will give you an extension in 3-month increments. I think I've seen it a couple of times where you can get like a 6-month unemployment forbearance plan. So unemployment forbearance. Now, a modification is something that's more permanent. Not more permanent. A modification is permanent. A loan modification is a permanent change or modification in your loan terms. So as an example, if you owed $100,000 on your mortgage, your interest rate is 8%, and you have a 30-year term, after your modification, it's quite possible that your interest rate may be reduced to 6% and your loan terms may be extended to 35 years. It's quite possible. And I know you're holding on to the edge of your seats and you're asking yourself, well, how about that little thing called principal? Can I get my principal reduced, Attorney Fenton? Well, the answer is maybe. According to the Home Affordable Modification Program, the lender is not required to reduce your principal. They're not required. What they are required to do, however, is to lower your interest rate to as low as 2% and extend your terms to as many as 40 years if you meet the requirements to obtain a loan modification pursuant to the Home Affordable Modification Program. And that's a question. First, you have to qualify for the program. Once you qualify for the program, then what the lender is required to do to get you within the bounds of the program is to reduce your interest rate to as low as 2% and extend your terms to as many as 40 years. And it depends on your particular circumstance as to whether or not you will get the 2% interest rate or the 40-year term. It depends, people. Everyone doesn't get a 2% interest rate, and everyone doesn't get a 40-year term or a 30-year term or whatever the case may be. It depends. Now, what we can do and what you can do for free is find out sort of where you fall within the guidelines of the Home Affordable Modification Program for free. I offer that assessment for free. It's not a gimmick. You can call me, schedule your appointment. I'll sit down with you and go over it. Call me at 708-991-7268. This is one thing, though, I want to share with you. If you're not behind on your mortgage, this is like a drum roll time. I wish I had a drum roll. If you're not behind on your mortgage, I hate to say this, but my experience is that the likelihood of your obtaining a loan modification is diminished drastically. If I had to put a percentage on it, I'd say you have less than a 10% chance of obtaining a loan modification if you're not behind on your mortgage. Now, that doesn't mean not to try. I still encourage you to try to obtain a loan modification if you're not behind, because the requirements for a loan modification pursuant to the Obama plan, and that's the generic term for HAMP, the Obama plan, is that you simply have to establish that you are struggling to pay your mortgage. And what does struggling to pay your mortgage mean? Or you're in, or better said, really the strict sort of the technical language or legalese of it is that you must be in imminent threat of default. And I just say struggling to pay your mortgage. So if you're in imminent threat of default, then you sort of qualify for, to be looked at for a home affordable modification program. In any event, if you're not behind, give me a call anyhow, and I'll go over everything with you. But this is really for those people who are 30 days or more behind on their mortgage, because at that point, I know for certain that they'll at least pretend to take a look at you. So if you're more than 30 days behind, then for certain, I want you to give me a call at 708-991-7268. You know, in addition to the short sale, that option to get out of a mortgage or get out of a property that perhaps you're underwater with or in, there are other options available to you. One of the other options that's available to you is a deed in lieu of foreclosure. And I think if you've heard me speak before, you've probably heard me talk about this. I've talked about the deed in lieu of foreclosure. The deed in lieu of foreclosure is a tool that you can utilize typically when you're already in foreclosure, where you can negotiate with the lender to return the deed to turn the deed over to the lender, or give the property back to your lender. You can give the property back to your lender via this tool called the deed in lieu of foreclosure. Now, there are certain criteria that must be met. There are some responsibilities that you have as a homeowner. It doesn't matter if it's your primary residence or if it's an investment property. The deed in lieu of foreclosure is an option for you. Now, what are the implications of a deed in lieu of foreclosure? Is it a foreclosure? No is the answer. The answer is no. It's not a foreclosure. It doesn't show up as a foreclosure on your record. It shows up as a deed in lieu. Whereas before you go to foreclosure, you're saying, hey, let's just rip up our contract and let's just sort of start over. So I want to give you this property back. It's much better than a foreclosure, because if you have a foreclosure on your record, typically, at least a few years ago, it would take about three years or more. 3 years or more before a lender would give you another mortgage. Now, today, I don't know how many years that will be. Maybe it's still the same 3 years. We don't know, because 3 years haven't passed, sort of in this melee that we've been in with respect to the real estate market. But it used to be after 3 years, you could get another mortgage, although you had a foreclosure on your record. So a deed in lieu will at least give you the advantage of not having a foreclosure on your record, thus presumably allowing you to re-enter the homeowner market and purchase a property despite, the troubles that you had with your primary or your investment property. So that's another, great information. There's one other option available as well. If you're in foreclosure, especially if it is an investment property, this most is apt for those who have an investment property and you're in foreclosure. And this tool that can be utilized is called a consent foreclosure. Now, what's a consent foreclosure? Consent foreclosure is when you actually say to the lender, fine, I'm not going to put up a defense for this foreclosure action. I'm not. I'm ready to just go ahead. It's like a confession. It's like, let's call it a confession judgment, a confession foreclosure. You're going to say, I'm going to consent to the foreclosure. Now, why would you do that? The reason you would do that, and this is why I'm saying it's most apt for an investment property, because when you enter into a consent foreclosure, then there is no deficiency judgment. And that's what a lot of people are afraid of who have investment properties. They're afraid of owing the bank money after the foreclosure. So hear me clearly. If you are in foreclosure and it's a secondary property, an investment property, and your primary concern is being on the hook for any deficiency judgment that may be entered against you, then one tool that you have available is called a consent foreclosure. When there is a consent foreclosure, at least in Illinois, there is no deficiency judgment. If you want to find out more information, learn more information about the unemployment forbearance, if you want to talk about HAMP, if you like to be assessed for your loan eligibility pursuant to HAMP for free, if you want to talk about a deed in lieu, you want to talk about a consent foreclosure, you can do all of those things for free. It's part of my way of giving back. I give free 30-minute consultations. People sit down with me and I give them all the information. And then they look at me like, Attorney Fenton, how much do I owe you? And I tell them nothing. And so if you need the information, it's available to you, and I'm offering my services and my experience free of charge. The number is 708-991-7268. Again, the number is 708-991-7268. The other thing is that please don't wait until tomorrow to call me. Call me right now, because my schedule books up. I meet a lot of people every day. I meet 7-8 people a day, 30, 40. How many was that being? 6 days a week? 48. I meet 40, 50 people a week. So it's very important that you call me right now and schedule an appointment. 708-991-7268. Although I said a little bit about it, you know I'm still pushing forward on my initiative to create 201 land trusts in 2011. That's a game that I'm playing in the law office, you know. On the one hand, yes, it is very vital that you have a land trust if you own property. But on the other hand, for me personally, I'm playing a game. And the game that I'm playing is that I want to create 201 land trusts in 2011, and I want you to be a part of it. And again, you can go to the website and take a look or read up on land trusts and their benefits. And the website address is www.attorneyernestfenton.com. Once again, this is the Gospel Truth Legal Show. It's brought to you by the Law Office of Ernest B. Fenton. I am Attorney Ernest B. Fenton, your stop foreclosure attorney. This show is sponsored by Chicago Title Land Trust Company, a strong and stable corporate trustee with over 100 years of experience serving the needs of Illinois real property owners. I want you to do something that perhaps you haven't done in a long time. I want you to think back to a time when you were great. If it were in elementary school, if it were when you played sports back in high school, if it were when you rehabbed your house or painted a room, I want you to think back to a time when you were great. And then I want you to challenge yourself to go one step beyond that point. I want you to be greater than you've ever been before. I want you to try that on just one time. And let's try it on right now. I want you all to have a great day. Thanks for tuning in. The Gospel Truth Legal Show.
You've been listening to The Legal Perspective by the Law Office of Ernest Fenton, the Stop Foreclosure Attorney. Call them at 708-991-7268 or log on to www.attorneyernestfenton.com.